So I think we'll get started with the talk part of. Yeah, I hope that mic is okay. Is it working? Okay. So I guess we'll get started with that. So we'll do that for about 30 minutes to 40 minutes. And after that, it will open it up to the floor. So I hope that you will enjoy the discussion. I was going to introduce Mr. Hijikata first, so please sit for that. So yes, he's the director and reporter at Tokai Television Broadcasting, and he's in the news division. And this is a Nagoya-based TV station that's affiliated with Fuji Television Network. And he joined Tokai Television Broadcasting after graduating from Sophia University in Tokyo with BA in English Literature. And I happen to be his classmate from this Sophia University. And he's worked in production teams of variety and informational shows before transferring to the news division. He directed his debut documentary called Homeless Digital. 大学球児再生計画 So it's entitled Homeless Director, High School Baseball Dropouts Road to Recovery, which is also a very fascinating, interesting film, in 2014, and has won several awards for public campaign commercials, featuring issues in reporting the third anniversary of the 3/11 disaster in 2014, and also last year for producing another range of commercials about remembering and speculating about the war. And he's just getting his book published on Yakuza and this film from Iwanami Shoten. It's in Japanese, unfortunately. 日本語になりますけれども、岩波書店から10月26日にこのテーマの本を出版されるということで、そのタイミングでポレポレ東中野でも他の作品も見れる機会があるようですので、興味のある方はそちらにぜひお越しください。So, if you could give a warm welcome, sorry, to the director.
今回は堀口さん、私大学の英文学科で4年間一緒に勉強してました。
So I was studying with me in myself, with Sachiko, myself, as a classmate at the English Literature Department at Sophia University for 4 years.
そうだ、15年経ってこんなに英語の力に差がつくと思ってなかったので、ちょっとびっくりしてます。
I didn't realize that my English ability would be so different from her or me after 15 years.
多分だから言ってることは僕分かるんですが、喋ることができませんので、それはお気をつけください。
I can probably understand mostly what you're saying, but I have problems articulating what I'm thinking about, so I hope you can bear with me.
今日は忙しい中、このヤクザと憲法を見に来ていただいてありがとうございます。
So thank you all for coming by today for screening of this film.
で、何を話したらいいかってあんまりよくわからないんで、典型的な質問だけ彼女にしてもらった後は皆さんに自由に質疑応答してもらおうかなと思ってます。
So rather than me talking, I will be asking some typical questions, and he'll be responding. So my first question is how he decided to make this film, and the process of first producing the TV version of this film, and then later for this movie production. So
きっかけ。
どういう経緯で？
この仕事をやる前に私は、警察の担当記者をやってました。
So before starting this film, I was a reporter in charge of the police news.
で、担当がヤクザを扱う捜査4課っていう部署っていうんですかね、だったんですけども、そこで警察官の人から、今ヤクザって大変だよっていう話を聞いて、そこで初めてヤクザに興味を持ちました。
So I was working. I was in charge of the 4th Division in the police department, which works on the Yakuza. And the police officers there told us that Yakuza are having a difficult time now.
皆さんもそうかもしれませんけど、僕もそのヤクザってすごく強いというか恐ろしい、なんていうんでしょう、ピラミッドの頂点にいるような存在だと思ってたんで、それがもう一番その下の底辺にいるっていう らしいよという話を聞いて、警察官から、テレビでももう最近ヤクザを撮ることはタブーになってるんですよね、ニュースなどで。だから、これはいい機会だと思って、上司に相談したということです。
So just like anybody else, I had this image of Yakuza as being quite strong, macho, quite threatening, and on the top of the pyramid. But the reality, it seemed, was that they were at the bottom of the pyramid and having all sorts of problems. And in the TV industry, Yakuza is basically treated as a taboo topic, so they would never take it up in the news division. But having come across these realities, I thought that it's a good opportunity to take up this topic. And I asked my boss about whether it's viable to make this kind of documentary.
でそれで一緒に、上司と、弁護士の事務所であったりとか、警察官、引退した警察官を回って、まずはやっぱり殺されないかということがすごくベーシックな質問なんですけど、親も家族もいますんで死にたくないなというのがありまして、殺されることはないかという質問をしたところ、殺されることは絶対ないだろうと。ご存知かどうか分かりませんけど、今は法律がすごく厳しくて、その組のですね、どんな下の人間が悪いことをしてもトップの親分っていうんですかね、組長が逮捕されちゃうんですよね。でそれでもう組がなんて言うんでしょう、壊滅状態になっちゃうんで、彼らはもう何も基本的にはできない。一般人よりもその法律を遵守する、守るということを言われました。
So I asked around some lawyers and also police officers about what would perhaps happen if we decide to do this project. And the biggest, of course, concern was whether I could be killed. Through doing this, I have my own family, my parents, and of course I didn't want to die because of doing this. But the officers, the lawyers basically said, you're very unlikely to be killed because the laws are very strict at the moment, and whatever anybody at the bottom of the pyramid does, the top boss would usually be arrested. So the group itself, the whole group would get devastated if they actually do anything against the law. So compared with ordinary citizens, actually Yakuza have to be very obedient and have to strictly obey the law.
それで人の紹介を経て、多分もう日本で取材を受けてくれる組っていうのもあそこしか多分ないと思うんですね。彼らにとってそのメディアの取材を受けるメリットって全くないもんですから、むしろリスクしかないんで、そこの組ぐらいしか受けてくれないだろうというんで、私は名古屋別のエリアに住んでるんですけども、大阪のエリアまで週に3、4日ぐらいですかね、泊まりで行って、半年間ぐらいかけてだいたい100日ぐらい取材をしました。
So I was introduced to this particular group as Megumi, which is probably the only Yakuza group that will have media people come in. And because there's basically no benefit or merit for accepting any media crew coming into these groups. There are only risks, no benefits. So this is an Osaka-based group. So we went to Osaka 3 or 4 days a week. We stayed there overnight, and it took about 6 months to do this, and we commuted to this place for over 100 days in total.
なんで組が受けてくれたかは分かりませんけど、川口さんっていう親分がいたんですけど、彼は23年間刑務所に入ってて、おそらくなんていうんでしょう、ヤクザっていうよりはもうちょっとこう宗教家みたいな活動家みたいな、ちょっとこう思想家みたいな感じになってたんで、多分訴えたいことが世の中にあって、その組の利害っていうのを超えて、なんかヤクザ社会を全体を代表して、なんか世の中にアピールしたいという思いがおそらくあったんであろうと思います。
So Mr. Kawaguchi, the boss, the Oyabun figure, had spent 23 years in prison, as you saw in the film. But he's somebody like a kind of religious activist type of person who has his own ideals, and he wants to represent not just his own group, but rather the whole Yakuza community to make some kind of social appeal. So that might have been his motive for accepting us. Okay, so that's about it. That's another question is I have is about what the TV station, how the TV station responded to his idea about making this into a documentary. Whether there were any difficulties involved, because this is a taboo topic. テレビ局なんかね。
もちろん会社は大騒ぎをするっていうのは分かってたんで、最初はずっとその上司と僕の間で、この取材をしているというのを隠してて、会社に嘘をついていたというか、何も言わずにもう取材を始めました。で最終的には会社の中でこれを放送して、視聴者からクレームが来るんじゃないかとかっていう話になって大揉めをしましたけど、最後は一応みんなジャーナリストとして話し合って、これを社会に投げかけるべきかどうかというところで議論をして、その結果、これは出そうということで、出したということです。
Yes. So there was a lot of conflict actually within the TV station. So in the beginning, I actually made this production a bit of secret between myself and my boss. So we were kind of lying to the whole company, but we continued doing this coverage. And later, of course, there was a discussion about whether it's viable to actually broadcast this, whether perhaps the audience might give some complaints against us. So there's a lot of discussions going on. But in the end, we discussed as journalists, and we decided that there's something of a social message that we need to get out as journalists, and it turned out to be okay.
一回これ最初テレビで放送したんですね。でテレビで放送した後に映画にする際に結構トラブルがあって、テレビは名古屋地区っていう狭いエリアでしか流れなかったんですけど、映画になると全国で流れるっていうことで、警察からも相当圧力がありまして、ちょっと不思議な話に聞こえるかもしれませんけど、警察は直接メディアにはプレッシャーかけられないんですよね。だから彼らはヤクザに圧力をかけるんですよね。ヤクザを脅して、ヤクザが僕らを脅すっていうですね、なんかこう不思議なじゃんけんみたいな構造になって、ヤクザ側から、流してもらっ警察にモザイクをかけてくれっていうわけのわからないオーダーをされるというですね、不思議な、俺たちはいいけど警察を守ってくれみたいな、そうでもしないと彼らはやっぱり叩けば埃が出るこれ訳しにくいけどいっぱいなんて言うんでしょう、警察がその気になればすぐ逮捕できちゃうんですよね。だから警察から嫌われると生きていけないというのがあるんで、警察とはうまくやっていきたいという思いがあって、僕らを脅してきたということが実際にありました。
So there was a lot of problems trying to make it into a film, a movie out of this TV production. So, because we're a Nagoya-based TV station, for the TV production it was only aired in Nagoya, but with the movie production it will be aired, broadcast all over Japan. And the pressures actually came from the police forces, but the police forces cannot directly pressure us, the media. So what they actually do is to go through Yakuza. So the police would pressure the Yakuza, and the Yakuza would try to sort of threaten us. So they would say funny things like, if you could put a mosaic, if you cover the faces of the police officers, we're okay, but they need to be protected. We don't want to be hated by the police officers. We need to maintain a kind of good relationship with the police officers because the police can make up any sort of excuses, any reasons for arresting us or picking up anything.
で最終的に 最終的には、川口さんという人が、もう自分の責任で、上映をしてくれと、どういう内容になってもいいよということを言ってくれて、でもちろん一番最初の約束にあったように事前に内容は見せないというのはこれは僕らは守らなきゃいけないんで、どういう内容になるかは分かりませんよという話をして最終的に上映に至って、今もこうして生きているということです。
So in the end, Mr. Kawaguchi, the boss, took full responsibility, and he said, yes to the movie version. But as you saw in the beginning of the film, we made this promise that we would not show the content to them, and that was supposed to be sort of met. And yeah, so in the end, it was screened, and we're still surviving. Both the Yakuza and us are still surviving. じゃあ松山君。はい。So my question also is, what I know is that in the process of making the movie version of this film, there was a bit of an addition made, and that addition involves this very young, the youngest member, if you remember, who was I think 21 years old, new live-in, who seemed to build a kind of a family-like, a parent-child kind of very nice relationship within the Yakuza. So I was interested in why the director decided to add this bit to this final version.
彼はテレビ版にはほとんど実は使わなくて、でただ、すごく気になる存在なんですよね。で、僕としてはすごく入れたかったんですけど、まずやっぱりテレビ版で流す分数が短いんで、優先順位としてはヤクザとは何かってやっぱどうしても説明的なものにならざるを得ないんですよね。その中で彼はいわゆる典型的なティピカルなヤクザではないんですよね。同じドロップアウトではあるけども、現代のドロップアウトっていうんですかね、別にやんちゃな子でもないし、どっちかって言ったらいじめられて引きこもってたっていうようなタイプなんで、彼を描くことであまりいわゆるヤクザっていうのを説明することにはならないなと思ったんで、テレビバージョンからは外しました。ただ何でしょう、気になるというか、今の日本の病というか一番抱えている闇の部分だなという気がして、彼は映画版にはどうしても入れたいなと思ったんです。
So in the process of going to the Yakuza office, he was this young man was somebody who really caught the attention of me as a director. But in the TV version, there's a limit in terms of time, and we needed to focus on what Yakuza are. And obviously, this young man is not a typical Yakuza. He's not very active, antisocial type, but rather he's a dropout. He's a dropout just like the other older Yakuza members, but he's been bullied, he's been isolated from society, and in some ways he symbolizes the sort of contemporary ills, the dark side of Japanese society, and so I decided to include his bit into the film. So I think I could keep asking questions, but I'm sure many of you would have some burning questions that you might want to ask. So if anybody, yeah. Yes, please come to the mic.
Everyone, rather than wait to be called on, you can just come up and either stand in line or as a particular person speaks, you can come up and speak. And please do kind of stay on the mic. We also want to let you know that we are filming this and we put it up on YouTube, so you're kind of implicitly giving consent to be up on YouTube if you speak.
Thank you, Kai. You make me very nervous now. Thank you very much. It was an excellent movie. I really appreciate it and enjoyed it. Just a question, whether you deliberately didn't ask questions about how that particular Yakuza was making money. What was the source of its income? Wasn't clear. It suggested perhaps there was protection because he went into one cafe where the woman kind of appreciated what the Yakuza was doing, but in general, it wasn't clear where the income was coming from. Thank you.
収入がどこから来ているのか、ちょっと積極的に聞いてるけれどもよくわからないっていう。
結局本当のところは取れなか かったんですけども、おそらくなんとなく見てわかると思いますが、いわゆる野球賭博、なんていうんだろう、ベースボール
ギャンブリング
とドラッグ、あとはなんていうんだこれ、いわゆる風俗ですよね。夜の街の管理というかというのが主じゃないですかね。ただ今はどんどんその収入っていうのは減ってきているというのが現状、ドラッグにすごく偏ってきてるっていう。
So in the filming process, we couldn't really capture the scenes when there was where they're actually getting the income. So not like this illegal sort of maybe types of business. But of course, there were sort of it was sort of implicitly shown that they were doing baseball gambling as well as drug trade, and also another source of income is the sex industry that the Yakuza business is involved in. But as you've seen, they're not doing very good business. So basically, the income level is going down, and there seems to be a lot more focus on the drug trade as a source of income at the moment.
So let me ask quite simple questions. So what was your most frightening experience during interviews?
Typical question.
すいません。
実はそんなに怖いことはなかったんですよ。と訳してください。
So actually, there was nothing, maybe not nothing, but not much, very fearful about the whole thing.
でこれは推測なんですけど、おそらく組織ヤクザの組織ってもう恐ろしく縦社会っていうんですか、ピラミッドでもなくても一直線の縦社会で、一応親分っていうボスが OK を出したらもう全員がもう OK なんですよね。だからもう一応僕らはゲストとしてトリーティッドされてた、扱われてたという多分認識だと思います。
Yes, so with the Yakuza organization, they have a very strict vertical hierarchy, not even like a pyramid, but really straight down. So whatever the boss says becomes the rule. So if he says yes, everybody is for yes. So he treated us as a guest, and so we were treated as a guest by everybody else in the organization.
Hello, my name is Maria Suzuki, and I'm a Kenpo University student. I have a question, but it's really complicated to ask. So if you can help me with my Japanese and English. So, 若い衆の方、21歳の方のお話の中で、言っていたシーンで、これは学校のクラスの中で起きているようなことで、少し目立っていたりとか、少し他の方と違っていたりすると排除されてしまうような、のことが起きているっていうふうに言っていて、それがその暴力団の人たちをこの社会から排除するというふうなことにつながっているというふうに私は捉えたのですが、この取り組み本当に実際に起きていることで、その警察の人やこの日本の上の人たちがやっていることは、これは本当にそのヤクザの人たちに、会ったりとか接触してみて、これは合っている取り組みというか、この日本のいいことにつながる取り組みだというふうに思いましたか？
So the question is about a point that this 21-year-old young member was saying about how in a school classroom, if you stand out, you would get excluded from the whole group, and that's the kind of position that the Boryokudan or these crime syndicates are also in, that they are excluded from society. And you see that these police officers and the other authorities are trying to exclude them. So as somebody who went into Yakuza, do you think that this is a good way of dealing with this issue for Japan as a whole? As a society, is this a good way?
すごくいい質問ありがとうございます。警察だけじゃなくて我々メディアも一緒だと思うんですけども、今は極端っていうんですかね、こいつらを叩くぞとなったらもう死ぬまで叩いちゃうというか、ダメだという人たちをもうこの世の中から消そうっていう、これ多分世界的にもそうだと思うんですけど、気に食わねえなって思った、彼がちょうど喋ってましたけどね、気に食わないなって思ってたやつらと なんとなくうまくやっていくっていうんじゃなくて、もうそいつらを世の中から消しちゃおう、見えないところまでやっちゃおうっていう、今世の中になりつつあって、で僕が感じたのはなかなかそれって難しいっていうか、じゃあ彼らがヤクザって多分なくなると思うんですよね。もう100年ぐらいの間に僕は多分なくなるなと思うんだけど、じゃあそれがそのいわゆる反社会勢力というかギャングがなくなるかってそうじゃなくて、いわゆる海外、皆さんの海外から来てる人たちもいっぱいいますけど、いわゆるマフィアみたいなアンダーグラウンドの世界に潜っていくだけで、なんて言うんでしょう、いろんな問題に多分世界でもIS だとかああいうのだと一緒で、叩いて潰そう消そうって思うとそんなに簡単にはいかなかったりするんじゃないかなと。でそれを彼はヤクザもいる明るい社会っていう言葉を使ってましたけど、あれはすごく賛否両論ありますけど、そんなに簡単にはいかないんじゃないかなと思います。
ご丁寧な
ちょっと訳させていただいていいですか。すいません。So thank you for the very good question. So I get the impression that the whole society, including the media, becoming a bit extreme in that they try to sort of slam down anything that seems bad until you almost sort of kill them away, and you try to really get it out of society if you don't think that that's good. But as this 21-year-old was saying, he believes in this idea of this bright, bright society where Yakuza can also coexist. So it's better for society to be able to accommodate these differences and make sure that people who have different ideas, even if you don't like them, you somehow kind of coexist together. But what's happening is that you really try to exclude them out of society. I think Yakuza will probably maybe disappear in 100 years or so. I expect that to happen. But that doesn't mean that gangs, underground kind of mafias will also disappear. They will probably remain in society as underground forces, and maybe you could say that IS, Islamic State, that kind of group, also symbolizes that kind of dilemma or maybe difficulty that society seems to have.
じゃあ日本語でいきます。テンプル大学ジャパンキャンパス広報担当三田です。今日は素晴らしい渾身の力作を拝見いたしまして本当にどうもありがとうございました。直人君やっぱりとっても気になる存在でして、私も友人もですね、彼に非常に興味を持ちました。でもしご取材の中で、なぜ彼がヤクザに加わったのか、加わらなければならなかったのか、そこまでそういった個人的なお話をなさったのであれば、お差し支えない範囲でぜひお話しいただければと思います。
Okay.
Hi, my name is Motoko. I'm Public Relations of Temple University Japan campus. It was such a really powerful production, and we really was really impressed, like how much you have put the effort in it. Our question, me and my friend's question, is that we were very interested in why this young man, 21-year-old Naoto, he had to join, or he joined the Yakuza. If the director had a chance to speak to him to that personal level through this coverage, we really would like to hear the story behind. Thank you.
正確なところまでは分からないんですけど、彼とはすごく話をして、おそらくですけれども、おそらくじゃないな、映画にはなんとなくは出てきたけど出てきてないこと、事実として言えることは、いじめられてたんですね。で中学校2年生ぐらいまでしか確か行ってなくて、そこで、もうドロップアウトして、いじめられたとは言わないですけど、からかいを受けてたっていうんですけど、同級生に傘でつつかれて怪我したっていう話なんで、多分これはいじめだなと思うんですけど、でそこからいわゆる引きこもり状態ですよね。もう家の中にずっといて、で阻害されてたというか、今世の中から いらないというふうにして言われている自分と、今のヤクザで、今のヤクザだヤクザですよね、ヤクザも社会からドロップアウトして、うまく世の中に馴染めないっていうところになんて言うんでしょうね、似たようなものを感じたんではないかなと思います。最終的にこれは推測ですけれども、というのはタイプが全然違うんですよね。彼の性質といわゆる他の組員の性質と、だから他の組員も彼をどう扱っていいかわからないですよね。全くタイプが違うから。だからただやっぱ追い込まないんですよね。怒るけど完全に追い出さないんですよね。それはおそらく彼らがいろんなところを追い出されてここにたどり着いたっていうことだと思うんですけど、だから僕らよりもある意味優しいんですよね。多分僕らの会社にいたら彼もとっくにクビになってるんでしょうね、きっと。だからすごく怒られて殴られるんだけど、最終的にそのコミュニティから弾き出されないっていうところっていうんですかね、そこの部分での彼にとってはセーフティーネットっていう、ここを追い出されたらどこにも行くところがないって言ってたんで、こんなん最初聞いた時はおいおいと思いましたけど、それは本気で思ってるんではないかなというふうに思います。
So I was, of course, really concerned with this young man. It's kind of implicit in the film, but he was bullied in the past, and he says that he was kind of teased rather than bullied. But he stopped going to school in the second year of middle school, and since then he's become basically a dropout. And he became what you call in Japanese hikikomori, or people in isolation, basically alienated very much from society. And it seems that he really found some parallels within himself as a dropout and Yakuza as dropouts, and people who just really don't seem to fit in very well into society. And what the Yakuza do is that although they might hit him, and they might try to teach him about certain things, as we saw in the film, they're never really going to totally exclude him. So he wouldn't be pushed out. So in some ways, the Yakuza are being quite generous, nice to them. So you could call the Yakuza a kind of community safety net kind of community for this kind of person. But of course, you could clearly see that he was totally different from the other Yakuza members. His personality was very different. So the Yakuza themselves, of course, seemed to struggle with how they should treat him as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I I was really impressed with the word by Oyabun Kawaguchi last day. Who's going to accept us if we quit? 非常に興味深かったところとしては、やはり最後川口親分が、我々辞めたらどこが受けてくれんねんという言葉が非常に印象的でした。どうもありがとうございました。Thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Clancy. The title of this film, I think, is Yakuza and the Constitution. But what I actually saw was a film which appeared to spend most of its time eliciting sympathy for organized crime, which is responsible for prostitution, people trafficking, the drugs trade, and various criminal activities. And I saw about 2 minutes about the Constitution. And I'm not an expert on the Constitution, but I think you brought up Article 14, which says that all people are equal under the law. What I'd like you to explain a bit more is why you think organized criminals are somehow being not treated equally as people under the Constitution.
結論はないと言ったら変な言い方かもしれませんけれども、明確に彼らが憲法によって守られるべきだとまでは言い切らないというか、僕らも正直わからないんですよね。で、まあこれを言うと逃げていると思われるかもしれませんけど、まあ、この映画を見て、まあ、考えてほしいというのが一つは、大きな僕らのメッセージで、確かにおっしゃる通り憲法が少ないってその通りでして、実は最初はヤクザだけで作ろうと思ったんですよね。まあ、その方が面白いしエキサイティングだから。ただ、まあ、最終的にそれをしなかったのには2つ理由があって、1つは、まあ、ヤクザだけだとこれ放送にこぎつけることが難しいだろうと。そこに、まあ、憲法っていうその公共性というかを持たせることじゃないと、多分テレビ放送とかっていうのはできないだろうっていう、まあ、判断。もう一個は何でしょう、まあ、ヤクザだけを描いてたらなかなか、彼らを客観的に見ることができない。でそのために、まあ、憲法と直接関係あるか分かりませんけれども、弁護士を僕らは入れたんですね。もうヤクザっていうのが接することのできる一般社会っていうのは条例とか法律のせいでおかげで、もうメディアと弁護士ぐらいしかいないんですよね。だから、まあ、その一つである弁護士っていうのを描く、まあ、山口組っていう一番でっかい組の弁護士を追うことで、まあ、間接的にヤクザを客観的に見せるというんですかね、っていうことになるということで弁護士は入れたんです。で、シンパシーを感じてるかどうかというと、まあ、感じてないとは言いません。ただそれは取材をすると、まあ、どんな取材対象でもシンパシーは感じる部分はあります。ただそれとは別に、じゃあヤクザが違法行為をやってるから許されるかといえば許されるものではないと思いますし、まあ、ヤクザはじゃあいなくなればいいかとも言われれば僕はいなくなればいいと思いますけど、ただ今の形の排除の仕方っていうんですかね、今の形のやり方っていうのは本当に正しいのかなという、まあ、さっきのちょっとマフィアの話に関連するんですけど、そこについては疑問があるかなという感じです。
So you might think that we are kind of not really being conclusive here, but there's no real conclusion, and we're not trying to get this message out that they should actually be protected by the Yakuza should be protected by the Constitution. Rather, we want to give this opportunity for you to think about it. So we are raising maybe a question rather than providing an answer to this. So we really wanted you all to think. But to try to make this film not just about Yakuza, but also to raise certain issues, we included this constitution bit. And there were two sort of points about this. And one is that we wouldn't be able to broadcast this if there was no sort of, some kind of public appeal that we could make out of this film. And the constitution bit was the public perhaps bit that we could perhaps include. And another thing that we did was to cover the lawyers that were dealing with the Yakuza, because we wanted to take a bit of an objective view to this whole issue. And in fact, what's happening is that because of all these sort of ordinances and laws, anybody, the people that can really actually have some contact with Yakuza are only lawyers and probably media are the only sort of two groups. So the lawyers play that kind of role of kind of indirectly sort of providing this kind of objective perspective into this issue. And in terms of sympathy with the Yakuza, of course there are moments where you felt kind of close, but I do think that Yakuza should not be there. But at the same time, the kind of exclusion that's going on in society at the moment doesn't seem to be right, is what I'm thinking about at the moment.
だから多分すごくいい質問で、実は 憲法を描いてないじゃないかと言われれば、まあ、当たりではあるんですよ。だからすごくグッドクエスチョンというか痛いところを突かれてるんですけど、じゃあ何を一番伝えたかったのかと言われたら、まあ、これはちょっと伝わるかどうか分かりませんけど、まあ、彼らも僕らと同じ人間だよっていう、まあ、生きてるよっていう、どうしてもなんて言うんでしょう、違法集団だとか敵ってこれ政治でも宗教でも何でもそうですけど、自分らと意見が異なる異質な存在っていうのは、まあ、なるべく自分たちと違う生き物だっていうふうに考えたがるんですよね。だからましてやヤクザなんていうのは今メディアにも登場しないし見ることもないですよね。もう一般社会に溶け込んじゃってるから。そうなるとどう僕ら我々一般人は思うかっていうと、ヤクザなんかもういや、まあ、宇宙人みたいなもんですよね。火星人みたいなもんだ。だってもう普通に殺しゃいいじゃんっていうすごくシンプルな答えにこれは行きがちだなと。このことっていうのもまた今の世の中世界中で起きていることとすごく似てると思うんですけども、自分たちと同じ人間じゃないって考えたくなるし、その方が楽だし排除するために。でもそうじゃなくてこれは世の中自分たちが嫌ってるものっていうのは実は僕らとそんなに変わんないよっていう、隣町に住んでますよっていう、そういう上でじゃあどういう選択をするか、それでも別にじゃあ排除すべきと思えば排除するべきだと思うし、べきだというかそれはその人たちの判断だと思いますけど、ただその前提として、まあ、自分たちと同じ部分があるよというところは分かっておいた方がいいんじゃないかなということです。
Yes, the point about the question about the Constitution is a good point because indeed, as you say, we don't really cover that topic that much. But so the overall message that I guess we really wanted to get out was that these Yakuza are also people and they're living just like us. And there's this tendency in our society to treat whatever is illegal or enemy as we just want to exclude them. Whatever is different, we tend to treat differences as maybe just a very different kind of species, not human kind of. And that really is kind of an easy way of compartmentalizing and excluding these people that we might not really like. And with Yakuza, the media don't really take them up, and so they don't seem very visible. As you saw in the film, they very much become part of our society. They don't really stand out, and so we kind of lose sight of it. And so we really, in this film, we wanted to really show how human they are, and that there could just be another neighbor that we have, and so it's up to us to decide whether we really want to, of course, exclude them, and we could think about that ourselves. Yeah, so the Yakuza tend to be perhaps treated as a kind of people from another planet. In that sense, it's easy for us to think of them as people that we can just kill, or another species that we can just exclude, and that's not something that we should be doing. We're all human. Yes. There are questions?
最後の発言についての質問なんですけれども、で日本の法律についての質問です。最後に私たちはどこにも行けないんです。誰も受け入れてくれないんですね。やめようと思っても。この法律、ヤクザを排除する法律の中に、辞めたい人を救うためのなんか対策とか法律とか何かありますか？
形式上はあります。一応、警察だとか警察をリタイアした人たちが作っている団体があって、各都道府県に一つずつあるんですね。いわゆるリクルーティングというか、辞めた人たちを新たな仕事に就かせるっていう、その間に入る人たちがいるんですけど、実際はなかなかうまくいってないです。それは僕の考えでは、あまり本気じゃないですね。ヤクザを一般社会に戻すっていうことに対して 多分本気じゃない。その都道府県に一つずつある組織は警察をリタイアした人たちの天下りって言葉をご存知ですか、次のセカンドジョブなんですよね。だから彼らはそんなに仕事はしていないです。僕の見解ですよ。だから実績はほとんどないではないでしょうか。
例えば名前を変えたりね、その元ヤクザの名前を変えて彼らがなんか違うところで例えば仕事が見つかるようにとかいろんな方法があると思うんですけど、そういう措置とかはないんですか？
基本的にちょっと作品の中で分かりにくかったかもしれませんけど、辞めてから3年ないし5年はヤクザと同等の扱いをされるんですね。だからそれは銀行口座が作れなかったりだとか保険に入れなかったりだとかっていうことであって、会社に入ったりするといわゆる契約書に全て入ってるんですよ、項目が。反社会勢力ヤクザと関わりがありませんよっていうチェックボックスがあるんですよね。だから嘘をつかないと世の中には戻れないというか、基本的に5年はやっぱり社会に帰れないっていう現状がある。それでももちろん復帰してる世の中に帰っている人たちはいますし、全く全員が孤立している戻れないというふうには思いませんけど、極めて困難じゃないかなと思います。
So the question was whether there are legal provisions for people that have left the Yakuza. The final point that was made in the film about from Mr. Kawaguchi, the boss, about where are there places where Yakuza can go to in our society. There is a legal provision, but this is actually not really working in reality. So it's just a formality kind of thing. These kinds of organizations, in every prefecture, there are these recruitment kind of assistance centers, sort of places that have been set up. But there are kind of places where retired police officers come. So it's kind of their second job that they can enjoy after retirement. They don't really seem to be very serious about what they're doing. So in terms of actual kind of numbers and so forth, okay, the numbers don't really seem promising. And a point was made about perhaps they can change names and maybe get a job later. But one problem is that after leaving Yakuza, basically they come under same kinds of sort of restrictions as Yakuza for about 3 to 5 years time. So up to 5 years, you can't really make a bank account, you can't join insurance. There's this checkbox that you saw in the film that you have to click, and so basically you have to lie if you really want to get back into society. So that's the reality.
もう一つなんで彼らが辞めないかっていう理由が、僕はこれだなと思うのは経済的な理由よりも多分居場所としてのヤクザなんですよね。映画の中でも出てきましたけど、疑似家族っていう偽物の家族、親分、子分、兄貴とかっていうああいう基本的に彼らヤクザっていうのは一個は貧困、すごく貧しい家庭、あとは例えば親の愛情が足りなかったりとかっていう家庭に問題があるパターン、あとはいわゆる差別ですよね。映画の中にも出てきましたけど国籍が違うっていうすごく国籍が違う人たちっていうのは意外と多くってそういうことでも結局は差別されてきたっていう人たちがもう寄せ集まってる最後の場所なんですよね。だから正直もう経済的にはもう全く行き詰まってて、なんでいるかっていうメリットはないんだけどもそこにしかもういる場所がないというかそこで関係を作っていかないと、他に、頼る人がいないというか家族もいなければ友達もいないっていう人たちが多いんで、そうやってますます孤立していくのかなと思います。
So another reason why they don't leave the Yakuza is that the Yakuza have become a place to belong to, called Ibasho, a place where they can belong to. And as you saw in the film, they form a kind of fictive kind of pseudo kind of family with parent and child, uncle being there, brothers being there, and so forth. And as you saw, the backgrounds of the Yakuza are often associated with extreme poverty, perhaps lack of sort of love, affection from parents, so all sorts of family issues. Another problem that you saw in the film is discrimination, or issues of nationality, and there's indeed seem to be a lot of members that come from different nationality. So there doesn't really seem to be any economic kind of benefit, merit in being part of Yakuza, but so there's more of a kind of belongingness, psychological perhaps belongingness part that the Yakuza seem to provide.
とても興味深く見させていただきました。ありがとうございます。印象的だったのが最初の方のシーンでマシンガンですかって言ったらテレビの見過ぎだよっていうのがそうですね。やっぱりなんか私たちもどれだけ彼らのことを普段分かってないのか、身近に感じてないのかっていうのを考えさせられたんですが、質問は3つの約束の中の一つに公開前に、本人たちが映像を見ないっていうことがあったと思うんですけれども、あれはどういう経緯で項目を盛り込むことになったのかっていうのと、その背景にどういう懸念があったのかっていうのをお聞かせいただきたいのですが、というのは私も堀口先生の同僚なんですが、文化人類学で、調査の対象者に対して要請があれば必ずその研究の内容というのを事前に開示することは研究倫理なんだっていう発想があるので、特にその社会的な立場の弱い人たちのことを彼らの、思惑とは違う形で彼らを世の中に表彰していくことがないようにっていうふうなことをすごく気にするんですけど、なので、どういった経緯で項目を盛り込まれたのかなっていうのをちょっとお聞かせください。英語でSo my question was, one of the three promises that you mentioned was that there will be no preview of the film before it will be open to public. And my question is, how did that enter into that promise, and what was the concern behind it? Because myself, as Horiguchi sensei, we are anthropologists, and we're very concerned about research ethics and the need to disclose our research to the public, or not to the public, but to our informants if they request so. And this is especially so if we're representing minority groups or people who are of socially underrepresented populations. So I was wondering what was the rationale or the concern behind this promise that you had.
事前に見せないっていうのは、これ一つはテレビのルールでもあって、ちょっと外国の方が多いからわからないかもしれませんけど、オウム真理教の事件があった時に、坂本弁護士という弁護士のビデオを、オウム真理教側に見せて坂本弁護士が殺されちゃうという、 TBS が事前に見せたという、これはすごく日本のテレビの世界において大きな事件だったんですけど、それ以降、その前からもダメだったんだと思うんですが、基本的に放送前にその素材を取材対象者に見せないというルールがまずあります。だから今回これをすごくクリアに書いたのは、皆さん、見てる人へのこういうふうにやってますよということをあえて明文化したという意味もあります。だから普段も実は同じで、これまでドキュメンタリー何本も作ってきてますが、基本的には事前に見せてないです。で、あとは事前にもうちょっとぶっちゃけた話をすると、やっぱり事前に見せていろんな人の意見、それは取材対象以外の会社の人間も含めていろんな意見が入ったものって結局すごく丸くなっちゃうというか、取材対象とは信頼関係は保った上で、ただ私たちはあなたたちをこう見ましたよと、でそれについては何て言うんでしょうね、いいも悪いもないというか、そう見ましたよということを出しますという話を、最初に組事務所に行って約束をしました。で、そこは信頼してくださいというか、それはあなたたちが気に入るかどうか分かりませんが、私たちが見たあなたたちというのを世の中に出すつもりですという形で、話をして了承してもらったと。おそらく事前に見せてたら何て言うんでしょうね、こういうとこやめてくれとか、例えば見てる人はどうでもいいことでもやっぱり映ってる本人にとっては、例えばですよ、不 売春宿みたいなとこ歩いてきましたけど、あんなところ俺恥ずかしいよとか、殴ってるとこ俺やめてくれよとか言って、まあ、若頭はすごく後で怒ってましたけど、あんな絶対事前に見せたら僕ら恐ろしくてそんな流せないんで、そこは僕らも覚悟があるというか、最終的に世の中に出た時にそれに対して彼らがいや嘘じゃないかというふうには言わせないものを流すと。それがお気に召すかどうかはさておき、気に入るかどうかはさておき、まあ事実だねこれはというものを流す覚悟はありますし、逆にそこが守られてないと多分彼らは僕らに対して危害を加えてきたんではないかなというふうに思うんで、まあ、やっぱりヤクザというのは暴力、基本的には暴力が底辺にあるものですから、それを最終的に僕らは受けなかったってことは真実を流したという、まあ、ことは認めてくれたのかなとは思ってます。
So in the TV industry, there's this sort of rule that's shared among all TV producers that we don't show whatever we film to the people that we have covered. And one incident that relates to this is in the 1995 Omu terrorist attack incident. One thing that happened was that the TBS TV station had shown images of lawyer, Mr. Sakamoto, and what happened was that after seeing this TV image, Mr. Sakamoto and his whole family were killed by Omu. So this is one big sort of incident that really, I think, made people aware of this issue of what might happen if you show images that have been taken by TV crew to people that you have covered. So this is kind of a shared rule rather than something very special for this particular film, but viewers might see as a kind of message of fairness, that we are treating this issue with fairness. So that's also one perhaps part of the message that we had. And if we show the images to a lot of people, a lot of different people's perspectives will be incorporated. This can happen within the TV station as well as elsewhere. But what happens is that the whole sort of message becomes kind of soft, not very pointing. And what the TV crew does is that to try to build a kind of trustworthy kind of relationship so that they trust us about what we decide to focus on. And they might like it, they might not like it. It might be good, it might be bad. But they just have to sort of trust us that we're covering some kind of reality and truth, facts. And this is our view, our perspective. The end product is our way of looking at you. So that's the sort of thing that we're trying to get out. And what in the end, of course, people who are film might not like certain parts, like the prostitution. There was a bit where you go to the sex red light district. The number 2 figure who was fighting against this young member, complained that he didn't want to be filmed with that scene where he was actually fighting. So the TV crew just have to sort of, has to make some kind of resolution, decide that we'll just do this kind of thing. And in the end, we weren't really met with any kind of threatening violence or anything. So we think that we probably did manage to get some kind of reality out into the end product.
I like to say that it was thank you for screening this film. It was a very fascinating look into the relatively underbelly of Japanese social culture, as well as just what Yakuza is like in modern times. But my question is, throughout the 100 days of filming, was there anyone that you have developed a friendship along the entire time, or was it just mostly just offhands recording and you just kind of let things settle on their own?
唯一ですね、僕が親しいと感じたのは、直人君っていう若い彼なんですね。彼おそらくなんて言うんでしょう、何かの発達障害的なものを持ってるであると思うんですね。で、こんなところで言うのもなんですけど、僕もそういう部分を持ってまして、いわゆる ADHD というですね、注意欠陥多動障害というのを私も、これ病気じゃないんだけど、持ってまして、軽いものなんですけども、すごくそれを彼に対してはシンパシーを感じてて、だから僕もヤクザの映画を撮ったと言われればそうかもしれないんですけど、世の中から別に僕も暴力的な人間でも何でもないんだけど、うまく馴染めない部分っていうのがあったんで、彼にはすごくシンパシーを感じてました。あとの人たちは全員恐ろしいだけでした。
So yeah, one of the people that was filmed that I really became very sympathetic to is this young member, Naoto, and he seems to have some communication kinds of issues, and I myself, the director himself, shares that kind of a disability. It's called Hatta Shogai or developmental disability, but the director himself has a mild sort of form of ADHD, and so there's some kind of sympathy that he developed with this young member. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I decided to film Yakuza from the first place. That I do have this kind of sympathy with minority or people who don't seem to fit in. Of course, I don't share anything violent, but I don't share that part. But there was some kind of sympathy. But the other members were just scary, and I could hardly develop any kind of intimate relationship with them.
So I noticed both times you were filming the backs of the Yakuza of their Irezumi, it was from a distance, very candid. Is there a reason for that? Like, were they uncomfortable with you doing it up close? Did they not actually want you to do it, so you just kind of like snuck a peek of it?
なんで入れず見せたかって話。
なぜ遠くから撮った。
特に意味はないです。ただあんまり意識して近づかないようにはしてました。それは何だろう、やっぱり近づくとどんどん、さっきもおっしゃいましたけど、仲良くなっていっちゃうというか、シンパシーをどんどん感じていっちゃうんで、なるべく距離感を保とうとは思ってました。入れ墨の話を聞いたんだっけ。で入れ墨を取ったっていうのは、意外ともう日本の人でも入れ墨をもう見たことないっていう人が多いんですよね。タトゥーとはまたちょっと違うんだけど、でこの人はいい人だなって思ったら入れ墨見て、やっぱりヤクザ怖いみたいな、そういうなんて言うんでしょう、ちょっとこうあんまりシンパシーを感じすぎてもなというのがあったんで、ああいうのはちょっと意図的にやっぱりヤクザだなっていうのは入れたところがあります。
So perhaps I was trying not to get too close to them, so that was perhaps that we shouldn't get too friendly with the Yakuza. So there was some level of distance that we tried to maintain. But in terms of the irezumi part, of course, the Japanese irezumi is a bit different from the tattoos that you might be familiar with. But many Japanese people have never really seen these irezumi themselves. And there's a sense that you think that, well, they're kind of nice people. You kind of your distance gets kind of close. You develop some kind of sympathy, but then once you see the irezumi, you're like, oh, they're actually Yakuza. It's quite scary. So you start developing a bit of a distance. So that kind of process is perhaps part of this.
Thank you for your film. I'd like to ask about the Azuma-gumi. How would you characterize that group? I think by the very fact that they allow you such access, they're not the typical Yakuza group, but are they perhaps more or less affluent than the average group? Where would they fit on the pyramid of all Yakuza groups?
なるほど。すごくいい質問ですね。いわゆるオールドスタイルヤクザですね。もう今のヤクザじゃないですね。彼らはすごく特殊で、いわゆる独立系組織っていうんですかね。こっちで言うと大阪だとサンテレビとか、こっちで言うと神奈川テレビみたいな、テレビで例えるとネットワークがないんですね。孤立しているんです。一本独個っていう業界用語があるんですけど、いわゆる独立系組織って言って、自分たちだけでやってるんです。だからシノギっていうその、お金を集めるスタイルっていうのがすごく古いですよね。で、ドラッグがもうメインだっていうのはもうどこの国も一緒だと思うんですけど、おそらく今の大きな組織ですね、ちょっと三大組織、山口組だとか住吉会だとか、ああいう大きな組織、ちょっとこれはやってるっていうと僕殺されちゃうんで言えないんですけど、これ推測ですが、最近のメインストリームは、多分 IT だとかね、株だとかそういうのをもっと駆使してやってて、野球賭博なんて全く儲からないんですよね。野球で儲けたりだとか、風俗だとかっていうのはどんどん少なくなってきているんで、どっちかっていったら時代遅れのヤクザですね。じゃないと取材を受けないです。あんな大きな組織はもう大きな会社と一緒です。普通の一般企業と一緒です。なんならもう普通に一般の企業の仕事もやってます。例えば塾経営したりとか飲食店経営したりとか、そういうこともやってるんで、もう一般の会社と区別つかないくらいになってるんで、そんな僕らの仕事を取材を受けてくれたりは絶対しないもんですから、もういわゆるオールドスタイルヤクザです。
So they're very old style Yakuza, not very contemporary. They're very independent also, so parallels can be made with this Yakuza group to local sort of TV stations like Sun Television in Kansai or Kanagawa Television here. So they're very independent. They don't have their own networks, is one part of it. And the way the sources of income, the shinogi bit that they rely on seems very old-fashioned. Also, I guess drugs, every Yakuza group would do it. And I can't really say this directly, it should be implicit, but I can probably guess that Yamaguchi-gumi, for example, the biggest group, for the mainstream kind of source of income for them is becoming IT, stock kinds of things, and not this old baseball thing. There's very little sort of income that this could kind of bring, so it's very old style. And what Yakuza typically do now is that they become very much like normal businesses. They own restaurants, they could be part of education industry and so forth. So they become part of the whole business rather than being so independent. But this is a very good question. One maybe final.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, last question. Are you planning to distribute your documentary overseas?
海外に出しますかっていう。
出すつもりです。だから初めてここで英語バージョンを、同級生ということで、縁があってやらせてもらいましたけど、この後は海外に、で上映するつもりです。ちょっとどういうリアクションか分かりませんが、笑う場所がちょっと日本と違うんで、それはすごく興味深く見てました。
So we do plan to screen this overseas. You're all lucky here because we've actually seen the English premiere, the very first English premiere of this film. But we do plan to sort of put it overseas, and we're very interested in the reactions that we get from the overseas viewers. I've noticed today already that the parts that the audience laugh seem to be different. So I hope to see more of that, perhaps overseas.
Okay, everyone, thank you very much. Sachiko, thanks for translating, and thanks so much for bringing this wonderful documentary to us.